Greetings and salutations, fellow cosmonauts journeying through the shared delusion we call mundane real life. Forgive the dramatic pause there. I thought I had a bit of pre-selected, pre-packaged intro to this special segment, today's nugget of Zen, ready to fire off and transmit to you through the miracle that is postmodern technology. But alas, dear friends, I did not. And then I almost played the intro to the standard basic base level almost daily Zencast version of the beginning of the show, and that would have just been silly and weird. Instead, I'll play you this. And we'll take two greetings and salutations, fellow freaky cosmonauts, through the shared delusional hallucination we call real life. I am your once and future host, the incorrigible Mr. Zuppo, and this is my strange and delightful, totally fan fiction-y delicious homage to the ye olde ancient radio art form of individual disc jockey personality driven talk show opinion weirdness of the pre-internet era. Cleanse the palate of your minds for 1 hot minute, folks, as I invite you to share a common space in the middle dojos of our minds as we collectively experience this podcasting simultaneously, remotely, together. It is Friday, August 6th, 1:38 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you're tuning in at whatever dislocated juncture of the not-too-distant future that is your current time frame. And yet, we will journey together in the exploration of a central, key, fascinating concept that I'm throwing out there into the world of public discourse in my own weird, hopefully entertainingly artsy-fartsy kind of way, with music, and someday I aspire a small little motley crew of fellow podcastineers with microphones in their faces and headsets on their ears as we share the communal experience of listening to music and discussing some of the deep, deep thoughts that are the very nuggets of Zen scattered around the Cosmoverse. Not just, available in any way, shape, or form exclusively to me. And dare you never accuse me of that falsehood. I am not pretending to peddle you some super hypey, all inclusive mega deluxe secret worth, multi-millions. I'm telling you what I have experienced phenomenologically, and think that even you, dear friends and listeners, could, for yourself, perhaps phenomenologically confirm on your own, without ever once having to radically deny your own free will and hand over to me your blind faith belief in any way, fucking shape, or form, because I'm not asking that. I'm just a crazy radio host with a few wild ideas to share with you, cobbled together from the irreconcilable detritus of the of the recumbent shambles that is what's left of my mind, having currently, at this point in time, survived what I would call perhaps the epicenter pre-shock of the long-awaited end of the world. But let's not be too dramatic about things, because as you will eventually engage with, when I get to the asterisk, here's my theory on the end of the world segment of things about this podcast, you'll eventually gather that you probably aren't nailing me to the wall with your preconceived notions of what I think the end of the world is. So, slow your roll. And that's not an insult. That's just like, hey, everybody take a breath. Let's not start throwing paper bullets of the mind or imaginary daggers. And let us not, like Brutus, start stabbing everyone in the back just because everyone says stab people in the back is cool, do it. Peer pressure is not always the right path. Dare I say it. But that's not the point of today's show. Today's show is entitled, if I am not mistaken, Fractal something something of the minds. Fractal mindgasms? No, I think I edited it myself. No, I think it autocorrected. I think I tried to type, if I may share with you a little bit of backstage secret sauce, I think I tried to type, in the process of preparing for today's impromptu, always real, raw, and radically unscripted podcasty episode of a delightful and obscenely hot Friday afternoon out in the SoCal wasteland of dystopia. I tried to type fractal mindgasm, and the autocorrect of whatever level of autocorrect, I don't know which implement or device or platform is responsible for this autocorrect. Because, I don't know. I'm technically functional. I do not claim to be some expert of all technologies. I'm just some dude with a podcast, you guys, in a world awash with dudes and people of all varieties. Dudes is gender neutral. As an officially ordained priest of the dudely order, I assure you, all peoples of all kinds can be dudes, and we can all sit around and smoke the peace pipe of dudeliness and be like, hey, dudes, can we all just focus for a hot second? Here's today's nugget of Zen. In my humble opinion, dear fellow sojourners of this ridiculous animatronic movie we call life, the thing that makes it so remarkably weird, the reason we take it so impossibly personally, no matter what's going on, no matter what's being done, no matter who's saying it, no matter what's being said. And I'm not accusing anybody wildly of anything unfairly. I'm just saying, as general statements, in my theory, all of these things might be attributed to the following gem of a thing that, I don't know, if someone else is peddling this for $1 million, well, shame on me for doing it for free on a podcast and ruining their jam. I'm not the first to say this. I don't think I shall be the last. I'm just one amongst many standing up and saying, I think this is actually something we can crowdsource the ubiquitous verification of, because like leaves on a maple tree, the roots are connected. No matter what any leaf on the top of the maple tree argues. Right? And magically, deliciously, just like that cereal, all the trees are connected and talking to each other somehow, because nature, and, dare I say boldly, as a central pillar of my own personal thesis, and one of the sci-fi ingredients, because yes, I understand some people, no matter how hard I may debate them in some cool TV paid talk show program of public debate platform, hello, hire me, help me host that show, universe, where people just debate every idea. Oh, you think insert here your favorite variable is more real than insert here your favorite thing you'd like to dish and pan and say is crazy cuckoo nonsense? Here, we found you, your perfect opponent. Go. Without violence, and by scoring real, provable, verifiable, and or at least emotionally swaying points, You can verbally joust and be ranked by an audience and also by a panel of professional snobbery judges, intellectuals, and street scum. We know, within the margin of error for safety and caution and all that. I digress. Wouldn't that be a fun show to be on? Wouldn't you watch that in some future iteration of your life as a retiree, perhaps? Let us say you make it all the way to that glorious point, which millions will not, tragically. And I don't just mean in the world. I mean even here in this utopian near dystopia of freedom and free personal expression and whatnot. Let's say you make it, and you're sitting around enjoying those fruits of your labor. And there's a TV show like what I just described, right? Two articulate, well-intentioned, non-violently inclined, unarmed people get into a faux, like, fight pit, wherein which they stand at a podium with a microphone and whatever media aids they want, at whatever fun, high-tech, there'll probably be holograms and shit of, like, cool graphics and stuff. And they argue any theory versus its opposite. To the disqualification. No, friends, because no thing should be done to the death. That's only in the realm of movies and loose talk that leads to violence. Tisk, tisk. We are more civilized than that, are we not, dear fellow talking? Insert your favorite variable of whatever thing you think this meat suit is and or came from. Because you know what? Everyone's got their version, and their own version expressly unique to their own. And here is a central pillar of mine, dear friends. For better or worse, no matter how you slice it, I attest to you I'm not making the following up. No one's paying me to say this. This is based on my own diverse range of reading, research, personal, meditative, explorative experience as a sort of self-appointed pseudo-psychonaut in the sense of exploring the inner realms the way others have with other devices. I have done with the complementary tools of meditation and cannabis. And I assert to you as a thesis that not only is it my humble opinion that I also believe through that humble opinioning of experience, built on experience, that you can confirm it for yourself. And it doesn't have to even involve the same set of ingredients that I used. It could be any other wide-ranging, interesting, some of which sound a little weird and wonky and highfalutin, series of paths, for there are many. Some would argue, as I personally sort of just borrowed this ingredient from whoever said it originally, said, yeah, it's probably true, throwing it in. As many as there are people alive, I mushed that together. Come on, public speaking subroutines, we're better than this. As there are many people alive, and there have ever been, that tread upon this and any other round little pebble with water on it we call Earths, and or planets, and or, flat places, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, really. Here, in terms of its shape, arguing about the shape is nonsense, but there's a pin in that already. We've already covered that. There are as many many paths as there are people to find some way to confirm this, because it is arguably an organic, undivorceable from everything else that is naturally occurring in the universe around us, eventually soon to be discovered fact that has been postulated before and deep in the, as some like to say, annals of history. I'm not sure that is the correct way to pronounce that word, but some people think that's cute. I digress. I'm totally spiraling out of control. In my humble opinion, and here's the big dive off the platform with me, please. Hold your breath. The universe is mind. And I use that with caps in the sense that, I'm speaking and addressing with reverence and awe and acknowledgement of it being, quote, the truth, close quote. And an organic, never mind the truth, the reality of things. Because the truth can be debated. As has been shown, you can easily derive many truths from the same source reality. To define a word that encompasses everything, whatever facts you want to throw in, you can derive many truths from any given existent reality. No matter what you're experiencing as your own personal reality, you can argue yourself into your own many varied rabbit holes. And here's why. The universe is mind. The mind is universe. I humbly introduce to you, dear friends, should you have never come across anything like this before. Like I said, I'm not exactly the first. And I don't think I shall be the last, for all signs point in this direction. And I just like to be the asshole on the internet. Sorry, we all have an asshole. We all have an opinion. Here's mine. I want to be the first person credited to have forwarded this in as well-defined a form that it is happening now. With no credentials worthy of the honor other than that I think I did the honest exploration one can do in the inner realms to go and try and explore and counter-prove this. In the spirit of Terence McKenna, with a bit of a cynic's shit-eating grin, I went in to prove that this was not the case. Came back going, wow. I posit to you, dear friends, the toroidal fractal theory of a living, sometimes awkward, it just gave me the hiccups, a living, dreamlike, as in the butterfly doesn't know if it's a person dreaming about being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming about being a person. If you find yourself in that situation, that dichotomous, unsolvable dilemma, just roll with it, because as long as it's not causing anyone else or yourself harm, then you can navigate any of it towards something positive, otherwise known as enlightenment. But we'll get to that point in a hot second. The complete and total title I'm trying to nail down for posterity and share for public discourse. And in the spirit of this not so new meme that's making the rounds now, in the spirit of the old school sense that, science and philosophers always go, please do come on board. Tell me where you see massive flaws that I may address them. And or whimper away going, okay, my whole thing's taken apart. Please see the last 3 episodes that if you skip through, worth really taking a slow, deep listen, because some of those sentences are not just jibber-jabber. Some of those sentences are some really deep, meaningful bits that if you sort of missed through sheer willpower of arguing with yourself in your head about something else, or something I just said, you may have missed entirely. I do it to myself when I watch movies, constantly rewinding. I digress. That wasn't a criticism nor an accusation. I'm just sharing my whatever is coming out of my mouth as I recite this thing that I was compelled to write down. This is a big blurb that came out at me that I almost posted as one thing on Facebook, but realized no. It was actually a really compact statement that needs to be unpacked. I failed in one step. I shoulda, coulda, woulda taken a screen capture of the title card I just filled out, because I don't remember how I titled this show, but we'll see eventually. And you're most likely, having just looked at it, got fresher in your mind. Mind is universe. Universe is mind. The toroidal fractal theory of a living, it's missing in my little note documentation here, of a living, dreamlike, organic reality, which could otherwise be called the living fractal verse. I kind of want to just slap in an AKA, because never waste an excuse to legitimately use AKA. Because lots of people don't even know what it means, and it's fun to make them go chase that down and learn some little bit of language. Because, that's how you share language. That's how language gets shared. It is its own little viral bug of sharing conceptual packets of agreed upon hallucination. And or, instead of calling it a word that's scary to some people, or judgmental sounding to other people, or dismissive or argumentative to other people, I have worn those hats at different times. We can say a holographic bundle of of information delivery, right? That is sometimes a bit weird. I digress. The toroidal fractal theory of a living, dreamlike organic reality. Please re-reference my note earlier about how I use the word reality, right? Whatever conceptual framework, it includes whatever you see peering out of your own skull. Whatever it is you think you see, spirit peering out of your own orifices. AKA the living or the divine. I think I don't want to smack the word divine in there, but it certainly doesn't not belong there. And I am on the fence about putting it into the document it should. I guess I could, you know what? I put it in little brackets so that it's slightly less offensive, I fear. My weird editing voice. Also, I like things in brackets sort of inset within a thing. The divine living fractal verse. The embryo of the egg, and actually I'm adding things here. So if you hear weird typing, awkward typing and pauses. The embryo of the cosmic universal egg, which I failed to type. I just wrote the egg. Real, raw, unscripted. You're literally listening to me edit to my own notes as I stumble through them for you, dear friends. It should be charming, but probably isn't going to inspire a huge wave of immediate onset of fandom, followings. But it's what this show desperately needs. The embryo of the cosmic universal egg is the unity of divine consciousness. The unity is all diversity. The universe itself is life alive, embodied embodiment. Hold on. That sentence evolved. The universe itself is alive, comma, life alive, embodied, embodying, embodiment. Full stop. As weird and redundant as that may have sounded, to anyone who's very serious about language, that's a full and complete sentence that makes rational sense and actually conveys complex information that means something. And it shouldn't be dismissed just because it's also ridiculously alliterative in the literary sense of alliteration. I said what I said, and let us move on. One could visualize, metaphorically, the whole thing as a giant fractal egg within which there is an infinity of infinities of infinities. Each of them in some way, in some form, layering together, foaming together to actively creating the infinite multi-fractal verse of infinite universes, which are what lead to you and I experiencing this mundane reality that we know as our one own quote-unquote true, more accurately shared universe, which is simultaneously objectively real. And I've never denied that, right? I get accused of saying things I haven't said yet. That's one of them. It hasn't happened recently, but it has happened in the past when people just kind of jump off a platform without me. And I'm not saying that. Like, the literal materialist Newtonian reality is and does exist and can be exclusively described in those terminologies as does also, or to simplify it and use some of that theater terminology to borrow its magic, yes, and also the metaphysics of some of the things that are the gems within the muck and mire of all of the, surviving legacies of various spiritual traditions that evolved and got corrupted and hijacked in their journeys to becoming religions and or revolutionary spiritual, guru practices, etc., whatever, all the variants in between. Because as omnists, I think I'm saying that right. Am I saying that wrong, DJZ? As omnists, as however, insert here, however, Sadhguru, bless his heart, I don't know if he's got weird things people accuse him of, but he might. Everyone does, doesn't he, right? Isn't that the meaning of, let he without sins cast the first stone? Because everyone's done something wrong. As someone pointed out, which I endorsed today in real time earlier, right before the show, we are all toxic, potentially and historically have had our flawed and failed moments of toxicity. We cannot deny toxic this or that. We can only refine our discourse about how we solve those problems, etc., etc. And so, friends, after 26 minutes of rambling at you about this nugget of embryonic consciousness that I am postulating you share with me the time and effort in theorizing about, I indulge in a little bit of music so that you may just contemplate that. The universe is mind. That, and I mean the known universe. Whether you think it's flat or whether you think of it's only material, or you include already in your theory of things some many latticed structure of other things going on, because yes, indeed, there are. No need to vote for the evil, dark, nefarious ones whilst that shit is there. WTF, mofos, why choose to invoke it? Always the overhanging question when it comes to belief structures that invoke a lot of evil, nefarious things necessarily happening, especially when you choose despair and the impossibility of doing anything about it. You're literally choosing, and you couple that with a belief in a materialist universe. But I digress. There's a whole argumentation zone there where we can get in and joust. Wouldst this show were only that theoretical show I postulated? Only with a bit of time, perhaps, a bit of crowd manifestation of enthusiastic audience doing that street corner teamwork of telling real folks out there on in their multiverse of realities tuning into this weird and delightful show. Yo, if you've never tuned in to at least 11 episodes of the Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's Bizarro podcast, you haven't checked, you haven't really pushed your limits. I don't know. Whatever the sale hook is for people. Manifesting that here and now, but also indulging you with this. Your mind is a universe of minds, plural. Ergo, my mind is a universe of minds. Ergo, everyone's mind is a universe of minds. And no matter how much any one of those many minds may in fact deny it, publicly proclaim some distaste for it, insert the acknowledgement, I realize I could be totally wrong. I am secretly, derply. Oh wow, I just dug myself a grave there. Some hater's gonna just derp all over that and derp all over my face about derping. Whatever that means. I don't even know what it means, but it's what I said just now, and suddenly it's gonna be a thing. Derp, diddy, derp, derp. Derp words. They're little packages of painful information. What was I saying? Deep down, I am not so secretly convinced. Openly secretly convinced. Telling you on my podcast, all 11 dozen of you that listen really hard, thank you so much for listening. Deep down, that every mind, no matter how fucking hard they deny it, every mind has some key things in common. As a sort of organic, fractal gasmic constant. Everybody likes to dance, even the people who say they hate to dance. If you breathe and walk and work, deep down, you cannot deny that when the rhythm's just right, you too will spontaneously wiggle. Maybe this track ain't doing it for you at all. That's fine. I'm not saying this track 100% necessarily will. It's not. I didn't even know what it sounded like. DJ Zed whipped it up and I'm just playing it for you. Life, alive, embodied, embodying, embodiment. Life, being all life. One life being all the lives, being all the forms of life that life can form. a fractal gasmic fractal verse of all probability waveform functions possible. The universe as a giant, living, godlike mind of an infinitude of minds, within which, and the collective experiencing of which, is contained and containing of all possible physical realities and probabilistic outcomes. The multiverse of multiverses spirals inwards and outwards through itself to create ever increasing layers of complexity. To say that this is it, this is the pinnacle, this is the tippity top, whatever this is, to be an ambulatory meat sack of blood and bone descended from whatever the fuck things were descended from, that eat and breathe and poop and argue about politics and wage on with infinite, as some recent media has so deliciously, sarcastically recoined it, sustainable war, and taken on a warlike mentality in all things up to and including the supposed working of spiritual work. In the chaos, in the madness, in this soup, in this roller coaster VR experience, whatever it is, a few things are undeniable. They are universally commonly held. Dance, arguably, some would say, is not one of them, because some people hate it. And I just like to poke fun about that, because I think ultimately, even though they may be flawed and not so great at it, if they were to rock out once or twice a year in a fun, healthy, tribalistic way, in a way that makes sense, tribalism, as opposed to applying tribalism in a effed up, toxic, backwards ass, totally chaotic, totally disruptive, totally violence-oriented way that we might consider tribalism of politics, right? Even those folks, if I may finish my thought between gulps of tea, even those folks might experience some tangible, slightly difficult to describe, yet physically palpable catharsis. Why? Well, as part of my very bizarre and crazy, far-reaching theory, one can understand that the body is thus because it required itself to be thus, right? As it is, as Carl Sagan so aptly put it, as I am fond of calling out, the body avatar, whatever else it is quite literally the universe giving life to a form in which it can bestow and imbue consciousness into something it gives birth to, vis-a-vis which it can be its own eyes and ears and skin and tongue and nose and sensory apparatus et al., sensory portal into a cognitive procedural processing machine that we whimfully minimize and call the brain, and sort of also, when used in a sort of negative, derogatory sense, minimize and toxically defile the mind. The universe itself is life alive. And it is indeed quite busy exploring and experiencing itself and the infinite variety of all probabilistic outcomes of this happening through the beings, i.e. you, me, and everyone else that is self-appointedly alive, aware of one's own aliveness, and cognizant of one's own conscious participation in this particular iterance or instance that we sort of co-delusionally both create and suffer the consequences of, because both of those things are true. This reality can be both very illusory and also very tangibly hard and real. Life, expressing all forms through that endless process, renders something that must be considered, in my humble opinion. It renders in that infinite hallway mirror of infinitudes, of infinities looping back in on themselves, in a Mobius strip loop of infinities spawning and breeding infinities within infinities. It renders all possible minds, including mine, including your own. Every mind contains within it, I proceed to stipulate, this is really critical. It's not just some highfalutin, high-flying, abstract thesis. It's got some really deep cognitive, meaningful, what to do about it stuff that I'll talk about in part 2 later on. Every mind, I will close on this mind-blowing mindfulness thought, which may or may not be new to you, but I expressly enjoin you in considering once again with fresh eyes. Every mind contains within it an infinite fractal multiverse of all probability, waveform, function tunnels, of all possible branches, of all possible varieties of iterations of timelines for each of us as individuals living in the mundane material realm. And in any given timeline framework, all individuals are fractal iterations of the one unity of consciousness. As it emanates from Source, this embryonic center of all centers, and manifests all worlds, all timelines, all iterations, all body avatars, all repetitions, all loops, all matrices, all truths, and all lies. All fake hallucinations and all real hallucinations. All flesh and bone experiences possible. Whether you've experienced them yet or not, in your little individual flesh pod seedling of living through the transmorphational, there's a word that needs to be more fine-tuned there, experience of being one of these little iterations within an infinite spiraling arm of golden infinity expressions of all possible variational outcomes. And therein, dear friends, it is not some hopeless, overwhelming, suffocating picture of too many fractals exploding fractals upon fractals everywhere. There is a sane path back to some sanity and taking cohesive action moving forward, comprehending that everyone, in a potentially narcissistic, but hopefully not, kind of way, is their own little god mini fractal verse of their own mini omniverse of an infinitude of iterations of themselves, living through whatever variations that may have spiraled away and maybe spiraling towards some unity of realizing cohesion in some recollapsing and comprising together in some highest possible outcome. And I humbly invite you, dear friends, not only to just contemplate that as a thesis, but join in with me and others, especially anybody who's listening really hardcore. I don't know who you are, friends, but I see the numbers. Someone really is taking a really deep dive and not just mouthing off about, not just blowing smoke about doing such, and listening to some deep, deep old contents of mine. Some of it is loosey-goosey, and I apologize for that, folks. And one day, perhaps when someone's paying me, when someone actually is paying me to do this, as opposed to me having the joyous and quite humbling, ever so dangerously life-ruining pleasure of paying for the right and privilege to produce and publish this little podcast show that you're enjoying, perhaps we'll be able to do the delightful project of revamping, revisiting, re-upgrading, and re-updrafting every single last existing episode ever in the archive and putting it all back out there for you to enjoy and listen through at some point. And of course, insert here the most central nexus of all my pins on the red corkboard of red pins, that someday the AI that may be born out of the soup of all computation, involved in all the computation going on in this already sort of bordering on transhumanist, highly high-tech, near dystopian future we're living in here and now, should that happen, because that really hit me. Here's a social media post I haven't made yet. Here's a meme I haven't quite crafted. And I'll close the show on this, folks, before it gets too crazy out of control. I promise you. And I'll play one last bit of music, but I won't let it drone on. I sat down with my youngest sibling and watched for the first time in I don't know how many years, and showed them one of the earliest movies from my movie viewing life, because that is a whole little dimension of life. All the movies you've ever watched and the mental experiences you have. Very similar, very akin to when you read a really beautiful book. You have a mental experience, right? That's its own little sliver of how we live our multi-dimensional lives in a way that we sort of generally don't acknowledge much. And even when we do, we don't know much what to do with it much. But I showed them Short Circuit. Honest, genuine, silly, nostalgic endorsement if you like retro sci-fi and you haven't seen it, check it out. It's kind of horrible, I'll admit it. There's some lazy writing going on that really could have, should have. If I were to write the remake, and I don't know if someone else has already got rights to writing the remake, and if they do, I'm sincerely apologizing. I'm not trying to infringe on those rights. But I am very tempted to write like a little draft of idea by, and try to see if I can get, HBO Max or Netflix involved. This is me pitching you guys. This is me pitching Netflix. I own this. I want to be involved. Let's remake this Short Circuit trilogy that never was a trilogy. I heard rumors, and then I don't remember if there ever was a third movie. There is a sequel. I don't remember how it goes. I don't remember if I like it. I might try and see if I can find it and watch it. I digress. I showed this and had the trippy, nostalgic experience of rewatching for the first time in over at least 11, I don't know how many years, over a dozen, over 15 years, maybe approaching 20 some odd years of not watching this movie. And I love whatever it is that is number 5. And whoever was responsible for creating that, which I recall was some form of fundamental, standard mechanical puppeteering with a little bit of remote control engineering stuff thrown in. But there was real life, it may be the Jim Henson Company, and if it's not, it's Jim Henson Company competitor worthy level puppeteering, because for the time it came out, which for some people may seem like ancient ye olde forever ago, and some people may seem a little bit alarmingly just a bit around the corner, not that long ago. 1986 or 83? 86 or 83. I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me. Sorry. Don't sue me. Early 80s. I'm not talking late 80s. I'm talking before, it's either 86 or 85 that it came out. So it was produced, and the fabrication of this character and this multiple characters that zip around and are the war machine robots that predate and cannot, in a true, if we're going to get put on our little nerd fandom glasses of cinema snobbery, these are true princes and heirs to the throne of precursors to all awesome, kick-ass robots of film that we love and cherish today. Whatever, insert your favorite robots here. And trust me, I consider myself at least a mildly well-informed connoisseur, enthusiast of the genre. If I have never, dear friends and listeners, supporters, please back me up on this, because I get accused of this. I just got accused of someone literally went out of the way to alarmingly steal a picture of mine. Question, without spiraling too far into this, Facebook, why is it so easy for people to just take your picture off Facebook and pretend to do it and then pretend it's theirs? Like, that shouldn't be cool. If it's about authenticity and transparency, people shouldn't be able to steal other people's pictures and then make fake profiles about them. I hear reports and scary, frightening horror stories of like somebody literally catfished being me and did horrible things. God, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It's so stupid and such a waste of time. I digress. I just got reminded that happens, and it annoys me. Also, someone accused me, quite falsely, of having claimed of being an expert about something. And I don't want to drag into that whole spiral because we can spend a whole hour debating this. But factual matter, blunt, full stop, nonsense, no malarkey here on this show, I never have. I never claimed to be an expert on that subject, never have. I've never claimed to be an expert on any subject, as I am not currently claiming to be a real, accredited film snob expert about all robot movies ever made. Dear God, no. But I am someone who loves me a good robot movie and will openly pan a not so good robot movie. And I'm kind of looking at you, Keanu Reeves. I sort of wanted much better. And I'm not talking about The Matrix. That's a brilliant film. Much more recent offering from the golden boy of robot movies. Because that is ultimately, dear friends, no matter how you slice it, a robot movie. An AI giving birth to consciousness robot movie. As is, to get back to my point and finally close this show at much long. I really wanted to end the show at 55 minutes, and I'm not on track for that. I originally wanted to do it 42 minutes. Never mind, blew right past that. 10 minutes past already. I digress. Short Circuit, circa 1985 or 86, most certainly no later than 1987. By which point, dare I say, for those of you, I don't care how much you disbelieve me, I swear to you, I had political opinions about things on the news, including the fact that the president had recently been, the recent president, I forget when he steps down, when he goes away, and is replaced by blah, 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 insert file, memory of name not found, here. But I had already had an opinion, a political opinion, about an actor, because he was, for a long time, an actor and a salesman of cigarettes and other yucky products that today we would all, faux social criticized judge about for having been a literal shill in the most technical sense of the term, someone who is paid to sell malarkey for other people who sell malarkey. Dear old Ronald Reagan, whatever other opinions you may have about him, that is a cold stone undeniable fact. And then there is the lovingly delicious fact that he was quite for a while the golden poster child of all things evil in the conspiracy theory community. Although now, under the Trump banner, because he sort of is a Republican that loves Reagan, we kind of forgot about that. Amnesia, erase. I digress. I've never claimed to be an expert on anything. And it's scary that someone could just take one of my pictures and then make a meme that heavily implies that I might consider myself an expert. Or have claimed to have been an expert about anything. I'm not. I'm just a talking sphincter. I'm just a talking meat sack that shoves other living things in its mouth and renders it into fertilizer. And therefore, like everyone else, has the God-given right to formulate as sophisticated of an opinion about what's actually going on in the world as I can. And dare I say, mine is rather nuanced. Thanks for joining me, friends. As always, namaste. May peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. Here's a little bit of robot Android music for you to enjoy. By the way, I've not read titles today. Probably not in the order that I played them. Today's music included Color Explosion on the GroovePad app, Sparkles and Droids. I think that's what I'm playing next. Thank you, robot. And animatronic DJ Sidekick for psychically, kinetically reminding me that is what I'm about to play next and not what I already played. Sparkles and Droids, Dance, Dance, Dance Party from Special Deluxe Edition DJ Z album, something or another, it gets cut off, the screen's not wide enough. Also on today's show, techno beat on the groove pad, instigating dance, unattributed to an album, DJ Z. And Pop EDM 101, live to tape, remix live. Uninhibited pop cultural pops, songs, pop songing, pop song culture dance. Something to that effect, if I remember correctly, because again, the screen's not wide enough, DJ Z. It's such a tragedy. You give them these delightfully long names, and then I don't have a printout because we're a paperless office, and on the screen, bless it, if I tried to open it, it would just start playing. Here's the song I promised you to close the show. Peace out, you wild and woolly, ambulatory, philosophatory audience members of the show, and namaste. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Everything contained in today's episodes is, in all honesty, something that I do not use the word believe about. I use the word phenomenologically experienced and confirmed about. And I posit to you that as incredulous as it may be, if we're going to discuss it, and you are parabolically unwilling to even try to repeat the experience for yourself and or do some of the research into the cosmological ingredients contained therein, which others have talked about, so that you can kind of, postulate for your own deep analysis whether or not it may or may not be possible, then we're at a dead-end argument, and that's not very good theater. For yes, indeed, my friends, all the world is a stage, and I thank you for sharing a little bit of your time with me in the sort of cosmic intra-mental stage space of our imaginations. Until next time, I have been your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo.